Hello and welcome back to another edition of Sky in the Shy. I am your host, Edwin Garcia, and man oh man, what an iconic Game 1 that was. One for the ages. The Chicago Sky won 101-95 against the Connecticut Sun. Player of the game had to be Courtney Vander. She had a triple-double, only the second triple-double in WNBA playoff history. And man oh man, double overtime win in Connecticut. The Sky are just playing some of their best basketball, in the history of the franchise, and it's been just absolutely incredible. This podcast is going to be a little bit different. Obviously, you see there's no video, mainly because it's just I don't have the energy to set everything up to just make it presentable, and we're just going to go audio only for this one. We've done this a couple times. So it's only been audio only, a handful of episodes, just a few. For the most part, video is available on YouTube. This will still be available on YouTube, just not in video form, just audio with a nice little image, and that's about it for there. But if you're listening on a podcast service, there won't be really any effect to you. So we're going to get into it. We're going to keep it short and sweet. It's very late here. I am very exhausted, and I feel even bad saying that because I'm sure the players are absolutely burnt out having to play again after playing on Sunday, playing now in the semifinal, and then they have to play again in less than 48 hours against the Connecticut Sun for Game 2, but we'll get into that in a moment. Let's talk about Game 1 and everything that transpired. Obviously, you hear that 101-95 double overtime win. It was an iconic victory, and it was a hard-fought victory. It took 2 overtimes to get it done. And I want to talk a little bit about the incredible play from certain players on the Chicago Sky because they really balled out. You had Candace Parker with 22 points. I know she had some disappointing moments in the fourth and overtime, but overall, there was a lot of talk about her matchup with Jonquel Jones and how that was going to work. And she stepped up, right? I don't know if she's seen the memes or the tweets or the comments, but she definitely stepped up and she played very, very well. Definitely didn't have one of those kind of pedestrian games like we mentioned she had in the second round. She stepped up. And again, I was expecting this from Candace Parker. It's Candace Parker. She's going to step up. She's going to play well. She's going to, bring her best. This is why she's here. She's not just here for a homecoming and to enjoy time in Chicago for a moment. She's here to win a championship. She wants more rings. And I think, this was the best place for her to do it. And it's kind of proving right so far. There's only one team that's in the same position as the Sky, and that's the Las Vegas Aces being up 1-0 in the semifinals. Everyone else is either out or in a worse situation than the one that the Sky are in right now, which is pretty incredible. And she played pretty incredible. 22 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. She was very active, and overall she held her own. Only had 2 fouls, didn't really get into foul trouble. She had a really solid game. Obviously, we already talked about Courtney Vander, who we could talk about for ever and ever and ever. Just amazing passing, amazing leadership. Made key buckets when she needed to. Scored 12 points, which maybe doesn't rock the stat sheet. But if you watch the game, you saw she made key bucket after key bucket. She called her own number a few times on back-to-back plays and was really outgoing and productive there. And she had just an incredible game, just really had the offense humming and running and able to compete at the level where they could score 101 points. It took double overtime, but to kind of keep up with what the Sun were doing as well. She's the point guard, the point god, and there's a reason for that. It's because she's able to lead a team to this level. And she, again, in a game like this, it got pretty wacky in the fourth, and we'll talk more about the actual game in a moment. I just kind of want to highlight the players first. But it's not that she played a perfect game, it's that she played an incredible game. And an incredible game, she played 100%. And then on the bench, we had such great performances from Dolson stepping up, playing 20 minutes, which she hasn't done that in quite some time. She hit a couple key threes, and it was fun, definitely, looking on Twitter every time she missed a shot or she got kind of, blown by on defense. It's, she's trash, she's garbage, she can't get her off the court. And then, of course, she hit a key 3 late in the game to help the Sky. She made a few key defensive stops. She came in defensively in double overtime. She had a few key rebounds. And next thing you know, it's like, Mama Steph is stepping up and all those kind of conversations were happening. So again, really glad. Obviously, Twitter emotions are high, rationale is low. And I'm really glad just Twitter does not run this team because they probably would have, kept benching everyone every 5 seconds. And yeah, you got to just stay the course. And Dolson's a classic player like that. I never worry about Dolson. I feel like I'm always higher on her than most people are. And that's because I know she's a veteran. She doesn't make too many mistakes, and she can stretch the floor. She can stretch the floor and hit those threes, and she can hit those threes because bigs don't like to go out there and guard. They're not good at it. They're known for getting into foul trouble. She's in an advantage when she's out there hitting those threes and shooting those threes and staying aggressive. And, she just hit one, but she hit a big one, and she still was stretching the floor out by putting herself there and coming off of pick and rolls and screens. And yeah, I'm not really worried about Stephanie Dolson. She's been around forever. She's been counted out forever. When James Wade came in, that's the first thing people said. Oh, James Wade wants to play a fast-paced game. Stephanie Dolson's not going to be able to compete. Maybe she won't stay on the team. She ended up starting. She ended up having a really good season, last couple seasons actually. Olympic gold medalist this year. I mean, I just think people forget, and she started a lot of games this year. Now she's coming off the bench, but look, in a game that mattered, she played significant minutes. She played 20 minutes coming off the bench, and she was a +3 on the stat sheet. So it shows that when she was on the court, the team was better for it. All right, so those are some of the players I wanted to highlight. Obviously, I think the team overall played well, but let's get into the game. Let's get into what actually happened during the game. And during the game, it was back and forth all night. It was a classic, just, one punch after one punch. The Sky initially came out, and they looked really good. They were on a roll early on in the game. In fact, in the first quarter, at one point, with 2 minutes left, it was 22-11. And I thought, oh my goodness, are they going to really steamroll them? And of course, no, they didn't. The Sun kind of settled in, and they got back into the game. It was a 3-point game at the end of the first quarter, 24-21. And that was one of the surprising things as well when it started off that way. You wonder with the rest, does it help? Does it hurt, right? Yes, they've had a week off, and that's wonderful. But the Sky have been playing some really high intense games. They're in a good rhythm. Maybe it's better to be like that than to be rested and rusty and have to come into the most important game of your season where you haven't really played in like a week and the other team's been playing really well, winning against, the kind of intensity that happens in the WNBA playoffs. So, I think they kind of maybe felt some of that in the first quarter, but they settled in, so I don't think it really factored in much in the result of the game, because by the second quarter, they had their legs under them, they understood the pace and how intense the game was going to be, and they were right in it. And to me, in the second and third quarter, it was kind of, again, it was back and forth. The Connecticut Sun won the second quarter by 2 points. The Sky won the third quarter by 2 points. It was just kind of, each team swinging, each team responding. It was a tight affair until we got to the fourth. And I think, obviously, then in the fourth, it becomes do or die. It becomes, okay, who's going to step up? Who's going to play? And the Sky were in the driver's seat the majority of the quarter. They were up the majority of the quarter. But the Sun just hung around, and then with a minute 29 left, they ultimately tied it after Jonquel Jones hit a couple of free throws, and then from there it was back and forth. The Sun would hit a shot, the Sky would get a couple free throws, and ultimately Kahleah Copper had an opportunity to win the game when she was fouled at the 3-point line. She got 3 free throws, and unfortunately she missed one. She missed the first one, which I thought was really horrible, because I'm like, oh my goodness, please don't just completely crumble, because these moments are incredibly intense. We simulated, even us, as fans, playing, oh, hey, the game-winning free throw, can you make it? People are screaming in your face. It's a whole nother level here. This is like at scale. This is real. There are literally thousands of fans. It literally does matter. And you're out there on an island on yourself shooting those free throws. It's very difficult. I've seen many, many players, I think we all have, kind of fold in those moments. And Copper did a good job. She missed the first one, and she could have won the game with that, but she to have the composure to say, okay, I missed the first one. I still got to hit these two, still tie the game, and that's what she did. She tied the game, and the Sun were unable to convert on their final possession, and we headed into a classic overtime. And the overtime again was it was haymakers all over. It really became a scenario where which team was just gonna have enough legs and not make enough mistakes. And I feel like both teams made a lot of mistakes in the last part of the game. The overtime section, it was kind of wild. You saw Vander Sloot with some turnovers that were really ugly. You saw the Sun miss some bunnies by the rim. Late in the second overtime, we saw a few moments where the Sun just seemed like they wanted it more in terms of getting the rebounds, getting the boards, putting back the basket. And it looked like maybe they were going to pull it off. But again, the Sky were able to keep the game going during that first overtime and extend it to a second overtime. And then, of course, in the second overtime, the Sky eventually pulled away. Again, can't say enough about the key players like Parker, Dolson, hitting key layups, key baskets in the final 2 minutes of that second overtime to finally pull it away. Quigley made a couple free throws. Vander made some free throws and just iced the game. And then the Sky won 101-95. And again, it was already a classic. It's hard to put into words, and that's something that I do for a living, about how intense and how good this game was. And the Sky played, a nearly perfect game. Like I said, they had a lot of mistakes. Yes, there's a lot of things they can improve on, but let's talk about the things they did well here. They shot well from 3, or at least average from 3. They shot 36%, which I still think is quite not enough. You want to get that closer to 40, but still 36% is really good, especially compared to the second round where they shot 25%. So 8 for 21 on 3-point shooting. They definitely beat the Sun in that respect. The Sun only shot 29%, so they shot more threes. They were better at it. They were more efficient. That was really good. And we talked about the rebounding battle. And I said, you're not going to beat the Sun. It's very, very unlikely you beat the Sun in the rebounding battle, but you can keep it close. You can keep it tight. And lo and behold, 42-42. So they did keep it tight. They had them right there, and it was actually dead even. And that's what I said. If you do that, if you keep it very, very close, or tie it, or win by 1 if you can, you're going to have a good chance of winning the game. If you get blown out, if it's, 28-17, you're not going to win the game. It's just not going to happen. The Sun are just too good if you're going to give them that many opportunities. And they did a tremendous job. Broke even there. That was great. Probably the only thing on the just general team stats that wasn't fantastic is, again, turnovers, 20. That's a lot. But it's a double overtime game, so I'm not sure exactly how many were in overtime there. So, and they also, that's something you have to accept with the Sky. They give up a lot of turnovers. That's just how the team is. And at this point, I've just come to accept it a bit, but I'm still, I'm gonna go out. My last words will probably be, reduce turnovers, Sky. That'll probably be the last words I say here on planet Earth, and I'll still be hoping that they can bring it down. But overall, not bad, and I would say actually a really good job on most aspects of the game. They kind of, looking at this stat sheet, if you didn't show me the point totals, and I wasn't really trying to do the math on the field goals and what was going on, but you just showed me these stats, I'd say, oh, really good chance they win. Your 3-point shooting is good, your rebounding is good, turnovers aren't fantastic, but that's probably not going to be enough to slow the team down to ultimately lose if that's the only issue, because they had 20, but the Sun had 12, so it wasn't like a completely one-sided affair. One thing that was a bit one-sided is free throws. The Sun had 31 and the Sky had 21. Now, I'm not a person who likes to complain about officiating. I feel like complaining about officiating is loser talk. It's just putting the onus on someone that wasn't you, even if sometimes it's totally valid. I'm like, you know what? We can do this till the cows come home. You complain about game 1, the next team complains about game 2, both teams complain about game 4. It just becomes like, okay, you know what? We all hate the officiating of any team in any sport in any event ever. So let's just not talk about it and just control what you can control. Blow them out and you won't have to worry about the officiating, right? Hit your shots. That's how I look at it. But it was a big discrepancy. It was 10, and something I'm sure they'll keep an eye on continuing forward. Especially James Wade, he's always very aware of how the game is being officiated. And I think if there's another double-digit gap next game, definitely, don't use it as an excuse, but use it as something to say, hey, the league needs to take a look at this. They're playing very physically down low. Are the calls being called both ways evenly? So something to take note of. For this game, like I said, I don't want to complain too much about it, but that will definitely be something to look at for the next game. It doesn't have to be even Steven, but it needs to either be close unless one player is just really going rogue out there. And I don't think this guy had a situation like that. Also want to give credit to James Wade. He just did a really good job, I think, working on rotations and understanding who needed to play. Giving Dolson so much time, giving a student to Dufal so much time, 21 minutes she played, 9 points as well, and she hit a 3 as well, which got me excited. It reminded me of the Las Vegas Aces game in 2019. Obviously, it's a bad memory because she also missed the final shot of that game, the Hamby Heave game, which we don't talk too much about on this podcast. But it did remind me of it because I got excited like I did that time. Like, oh, Stu's hitting 3s out there? Okay, let's do it. Diving to Shields just had an okay game, but, honestly, I think it was fine. There's a lot of high-intensity moments in this game. She still scored 9, and actually all 3 players from the bench that scored 9 points. Dolson, Stu, Diamond DeShields. They all did. Dana Evans didn't play much. Only 6 minutes, 0 points. I think she just came in for, I think it was either mid-third quarter, I believe, just to kind of give Vander Sloot a breather, who played 44 minutes, which is just inhumane at this point. There's only 50 possible minutes in this game, including overtime. So you played 44. That's just a lot. But good news is Dan Evans is very rested. She only played 6 minutes, and I think she was fine. There's not much to say on the stat sheet, but I think when I saw her play, the eye test seemed like, okay, she's handling her own, she's okay. And again, it was just one quick shift and she was out. So you can't really learn too much from that, but I'm optimistic that she'll be a positive factor in this series, because she's been a positive factor all season and also in the first and second round. So again, it's just one game. It's a big game, but you don't want to get too high or too low either way, which is something I saw a lot of Skytown do during the game. Some people were calling this a must-win. I'm like, it's a 3-game series. Even if you lose this game, you're going to see in this series who the better team is. You're just going to, I just don't believe that you can say game 1 is a must-win game in this series. You need to win every game, but it's not going to make or break. I think if the Sky would have lost this game, I don't think I would look back and say, oh, if they won, now they would have won the series. Like, you have a game 2, you have a game 3, there's other potential games, game 4, game 5. I do think in a 5-7 game series, the best team emphatically wins out. So, okay, if this game would have went the other way, you have an opportunity Thursday, have an opportunity Sunday. You should start winning some of those games if you want to win the series. It's not rocket science, right? And I'm sure the Sun feel the same way. Their spin on this would be, hey, we were rusty. It's a tough team. We barely lost. It took double overtime. Let's blow them out on Thursday, and then let's go steal, a road game. And that's the mentality they're going to have. We'll see what happens on Thursday, as obviously that game is coming up very, very soon, which is why I'm trying to get this podcast done quickly and out there so that way you're ready for the next game. And from the Sun perspective, they played generally okay, but like I said, they did have some rust. It didn't help in that first quarter early on. I wonder how their legs are now after a double overtime game. Obviously, the Sky have more mileage on them, but everyone reacts differently to that kind of level of intensity. And, I don't know how the Sun feel. They've been a team that a lot of people kind of are skeptical on. They're like, yeah, they win, but, are they just going to fold in the playoffs? And obviously now we finally get a chance to see it. And it doesn't look good, right? Like, they did look good in terms of being a team, but just from, like, the narrative perspective, it doesn't look good. Because, again, your record doesn't matter anymore. The Sky are 16-16, and the Sun are 26-6. Does anyone think that data is an accurate representation of what this series is going to be like? I don't. It's just not where the teams are. The Sky are clearly red hot, and the Sun have a history of struggling in the playoffs. And game 1 they lost at home. They're 26-6 on the regular season, but 2 of those losses were against the Sky. And then they got another loss against the Sky. They've lost 3 of the 4 times they've played this team. And there were, according to my knowledge, no injuries on either side. Everyone was available to play. So what's the rationale here? That's something the Sun are going to have to deal with today, and definitely for game 2. That's going to be pivotal for the Sun to come out strong, to come out aggressive, and just straight up win the game. I think they need a blowout win, because if it's the second quarter and they're down 7 or something, panic's going to start setting in. We saw the crowd get to a whisper. I thought there was no crowd anymore. I could hear all the players talking, and I'm like, did they leave? Was there like an escorting that I didn't know about? Because I don't hear anybody, right? And what was that? That was the nerves. That was the shock of losing. On WNBA's Twitter account, and again, Twitter's not the world, but it is part of it. The Sky barely edged out the Sun in like a poll of who's going to win this game. And I think that's fair, because it was like very, very close, like 51-49. Sky barely got the popular vote there, right, in that Twitter poll. But it shows how even they were, that it was close. And I looked through the comments after, and I saw a lot of Sun fans like, oh, people haven't watched the Sun. And I'm like, the Sky team, they'll trick you with that record. It's not a representation of their talent. It's a representation of a poor regular season, which we are no longer in, right? Now you have to beat that team straight up. That's the challenge. That's the difference. And the Sky have shown in these matchups, it's not the same as the regular season. And that regular season data, it can manipulate you into thinking certain things about teams. You have to look at the matchups now. It doesn't matter if the Sun were a better team against the Fever and the Wings and the Liberty, and they took care of business. That's not the job of a playoff series. To win a championship, you have to play well against the matchups in front of you. And in the matchup in front of them, the Connecticut Sun consistently this season have struggled. They cannot beat this team. They've had problems beating this team, including last night. That doesn't mean they can't win the series. It's early. It's just one game. But it doesn't look good that you lost the first home game, and now you're kind of needing to win game 2, or else I think if they lose game 2, it's completely over. So the Sun definitely have some work to do here, which they can do. They can totally take care of business, but it's not as... I think one thing to learn from the playoffs is don't take that regular season. It's a different season in the playoffs. It's totally different. I think Chicago Sky fans should know that. We've seen the team be incredible in the regular season before and then peter out in the playoffs because they just didn't have the, I think, offensive star power to just get a bucket late in the game when you need someone to kind of help you out. They just didn't have those kind of players. And I think some of the players now have grown from those experiences and they've become those players, like Vander, Sloot, like Dolson. And then they have an actual superstar player like Parker who's used to these moments and isn't going to fold in these moments and is a leader in these moments. That's another factor. We saw that during the in-game looks at the benches when James Wade and Parker were talking about the play and what needs to happen. They were getting very technical. They were giving increasingly insightful responses as to what to do and what's the right thing to do in these scenarios. And you need that kind of leadership in these games if you want to win. And so far, the Sky have done that. They've won, and they're on the road here. Things couldn't be better. All right, so that's the entire recap there of Game 1. Believe it or not, Game 2 is tomorrow. If you're hearing this as soon as it airs, it is tomorrow. And they're playing again in Connecticut, Game 2, and it's a huge game. The Sky have the lead. Like I said, if they get the win here, they can really bury them. I think if they win, this is over. It doesn't even matter what happens in Game 3, Game 4. They're going to win one of those. This thing is done. So the Sun know this. They're aware of this. You can't lose your 2 home games, then have to go on 2 road games, and then run the table back. That's an incredibly difficult thing to ask. So I expect the Sun to come out. I expect the Sun to be aggressive. I expect the Sun to be their best selves because they're going to have to be, because they need this game desperately. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what the Sky have left. We'll see if Wade factors in the fact that Vander played 44 minutes. Does she have a short release in the first quarter? We're definitely, I think, going to see more Dana Evans. And we'll see how the Sky are doing. They have a lot of miles on their legs, so we'll see if they have the endurance and the energy to match the Sun, who I'm sure are going to come out, with a fury we haven't seen all year from them, which is what makes this. That's what makes this exciting basketball and exciting to watch the playoffs, because you're seeing teams being pushed. You're seeing teams whole seasons be to the edge and on the brink of destruction. How do those teams react? What players respond? What's the identity of the team? You really learn a lot about those teams and what's the truth versus just what the regular season tells you. What's the truth in the playoffs? It's usually, as we've seen, quite different, right? The Sky are now a great team, and the Mercury, lost their game against the Aces, but they definitely put up a good fight, and no one thinks, I think, either of these series is over after one game. Looks like these teams are pretty evenly matched, and it's going to be fun, right? WNBA playoffs is fun, and I can't wait for the games. Hopefully this guy can pull out a victory and get the Sun near explosion, but we'll have to wait and see because this Sun team is extremely good. Again, the keys are going to be really the same. You're going to need to continue working aggressively on the rebounds. You're going to have to hit your threes, lower your turnovers, and we're going to need some of those bench players to step up. I'm looking at Dana Evans. I'm looking at Diamond DeShield. Those are the two that I think are going to have to shine. DeShields because she gives you the kind of offensive firepower you need, and Dana Evans because she can give Courtney Vander some relief after 44 minutes of playing in this game. So we'll see what happens. I'll be doing a podcast immediately after the game is over, and I'll have that up on Friday. So tomorrow they play Thursday. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, they play Thursday, Game 2. The recap of Game 2 will be up on the Sky and the Shy podcast on Friday, and hopefully we're talking about another Chicago Sky win. But if not, hey, we'll break down the loss as well because there's a lot to learn. Either way, we got an exciting series so far, and I'm looking forward to the next one.